someone was asking me, oh, you talk about movies on your show? I say, well, we have this guy. He's amazing. He knows music and loves music. He knows movies of all sorts and loves movies of all sorts. The subtitle movies, the superhero movies. He's a comic book nerd. He's also a nightclub guy. He's a television guy. He reviews it all. He calls himself the Culture Blaster. He comes and goes on a rainbow.
Woo!
Michael Snyder, everyone. Michael Snyder, welcome. Thank you for your patience, and I'm sorry we're starting a little late today.
Well, salutations to all, especially the mighty 10,000 plus who have subscribed to the Mark Thompson Show. Obviously, Albert, Kim, and mighty Mark, your own self. You know, this is a big deal. This weekend's a big deal, and I love the smell of haute couture, self-aggrandizing egomania, false humility, and desperation on a Sunday afternoon because it smells like Oscars. You know, honestly, it's so wet in California.
Somewhere, I think. Yeah, go ahead.
It's so wet in California this weekend that all the Oscar statuettes are being fitted for life jackets. Did you know that?
It is. It's incredibly wet. What do? All those celebrities, they enclose that little red carpet area so that they don't get exposed to the elements, I think.
Yeah, it's heavy canopy action. Mark, in Hollywood, Oscar is king, though. Does that mean Emmy is queen? Furthermore, did Emmy have gender-affirming surgery, asks every Republican. I know it. I've heard it. I don't want to talk about the Oscars.
Heavy canopy action should be a euphemism of some kind. I don't know what exactly it should be a euphemism for, but heavy canopy action should be something. Yeah.
You got to protect yourself in intimate moments, but that's going to be the wet carpet, not the red carpet. I hope people are going to take care of themselves. I don't want to talk about the Oscars because, as you know, I disdain them. I think it's a popularity contest. But I will say
you're right. Go ahead.
We can talk about that stuff next week. Let's talk about the new movies opening this weekend, and also one or two from the recent past that I think are worthwhile. One of which is an Oscar contender, believe it or not. I want to get into this, and it's amusing and amazing that on Oscar weekend, so many weak movies are coming out. But we'll start with Scream 6, which is, as you might guess from the title, the sixth movie in the serial killer franchise that began in 1996 and concerns a masked murderer or murderers obsessed with horror movies and eager to slay a bunch of attractive young folks. Who isn't eager to slay a bunch of attractive young folks these days? Anyway, by the way, if you haven't noticed, the mask seems like homage to Edvard Munch's famous painting, The Scream, and I think thus Scream. Anyway, when does a franchise become such obvious product that it loses what appeal built it in the first place? I mean, the previous Scream installment was surprisingly enjoyable as a soft reboot that went back to basics and brought original cast members back, refreshed things with some snarky, meta-wise younger characters, and tied itself into the current wave of what they call elevated horror, or cleverly, reflexively commented on its own franchise by the Scream series having its own fictional horror film franchise based on the Ghostface killings, which are, of course, fictional in our world. Anyway, like I said, meta. So 6 is a case of going to the well many times too often. There is a certain juicing, though, that comes from moving the series out of the small town setting it's always embraced and taking the murderous rampage to the Big Apple, New York City. Anyway, the Carpenter sisters, played by Melissa Barrera and Jenna Wednesday Addams, of all people, Ortega, they may have survived the previous movie and are now going to school in New York, but they and their other friends and frenemies are obvious targets for Ghostface, or multiple Ghostfaces, or copycat Ghostface killers, who may actually be any one of their group. So OG Scream series queen Courtney Cox is back as journalist Gail Weathers, who is continuing to profit off the books and movies based on the serial murders. Hayden Panettiere is also back as Kirby, another survivor of the previous Scream movie. And Dermot Mulroney is among the additions to the cast, playing Detective Bailey, who was assigned to the new Ghostface crime wave in New York. So there's a lot of talk about, killer and victim behavior and how it plays out in horror movie tropes. There is some gallows humor and there is copious gore. So if you like Scream movies, this is one of them.
Wow.
I prefer the first and the fifth, but Scream 6 is more very red meat for the fans. It's in theaters.
Wow. All right. Scream 6. He liked the other 5 more, but this isn't. It's on brand for them. All right.
No. One in 5. This is just more. That's all this is.
Okay. All right. He liked 1 in 5. This is just more. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, it's kind of hard to diss a movie like Champions, which seems well-meaning and features a cast of talented, likable, underrepresented performers, but it too frequently succumbs to kind of heavy-handed plot elements and dumb scatological humor, which I guess is par for the course in half-assed underdog sports comedies. Woody Harrelson stars, or more accurately, phones in his usual laconic shtick for much of the movie's way too long 2-hour running time. Here's a little clue. When you got a comedy, top out at 90 minutes or you're going to lose the audience. Anyway, rather than delivering the sort of textured performance he's capable of delivering, Woody phones it in. At least that's how it seems. But the script is so predictable, albeit well-meaning, that I should probably give the man a break. In Champions, he's Marcus, a self-destructive, hot-headed jerk whose career as a minor league basketball coach is on a downward slide despite his talent and his supposedly burning desire to coach in the NBA. Marcus just doesn't work well with others, a problem magnified when his careless behavior results in an arrest and a judge ordering him to do community service by coaching a ragtag group of earnest, intellectually disabled wannabe basketball players.
I like this premise. I know it's predictable, but I like it, Michael. Go ahead. Far.
It's scene after scene of obvious action and maudlin relationship strife, easy slapstick, and eye-rolling on-court machinations as some sort of regional championship could somehow be achieved, if only. Then again, none of this is surprising since the movie, adapted from a slightly better Spanish comedy, was directed by Bobby Farrelly of the Farrelly Brothers, who achieved renown by making the highly successful lowbrow comedies Dumb and Dumber and There's Something About Mary, which were at least genuinely funny. The only truly satisfying thing for me about Champions is the presence of the neurodivergent actors, unknowns who prove that they are more than able to hit their marks and nail their lines. As for the pros, Caitlin Olsen of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is Marcus's cynical love interest, who also happens to be the sister of one of the players on the team. Wow, what a coincidence. Ernie Hudson of Ghostbusters is on board as a well-respected coach who has butted heads with Marcus. And a national treasure, Cheech Marine, plays a civic-minded supporter of the team. I wish all of them, including Woody and those on the team, were in a better movie. Champions is in theaters.
All right. Machinations is a ding word.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was a Sam Peckinpah directed home invasion movie called Straw Dogs that starred Dustin Hoffman as an intellectual and ineffectual type who moves to rural England with his hot blonde wife, and local thugs decide to have their way with her and pound him into submission. Unwelcome is a new Irish movie, the first of 3 Irish movies we're going to try to squeeze in here.
Albert, do we have the poster for that? No?
Unwelcome? Okay. You might not. Oh, there it is.
Right.
It seems to be blending Straw Dogs with folk horror, and it's kind of all over the place. Although, to its credit, Unwelcome reminds us that not all little people of Celtic folklore are lovable, rascally leprechauns. So, Hannah John Kamen, who was in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Douglas Booth, best known for Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, are Maya and Jamie, a young couple living in a rough area of London. They're expecting a baby, but experience some urban violence that inspires them to relocate to rural Ireland, where Jamie's late aunt has conveniently left him a house. So they're welcome to the small town, but they hear of some bizarre local mythology and one specific tradition that must be enacted or bad things will happen. Meanwhile, the aunt's house is a fixer-upper that requires repairs, and the only available contractor is an overbearing patriarch type who uses his 3 loutish offspring as his workers. The contractor is played by veteran Irish actor Colm Meaney, who I love, and that's a plus. His trashy daughter is played by Jamie Lee O'Donnell of the very worthwhile and funny and charming TV series Derry Girls, and one of his 2 sons, the hulking, simple-minded one, because there has to be a hulking, simple-minded one, he's played by Christian Nairn, who you may know as Hodor on Game of Thrones. So there's an obvious threat posed to the couple by the construction crew testing Jamie's manhood, and there's the potential of a supernatural threat that soon manifests and could endanger Maya, who again is preggo. And need I remind you that goblins, elves, and such, if they exist and aren't just superstitious nonsense, sure do love babies. Oh, yeah. Anyway, unwelcome is no pot of gold, nor is it a soggy bowl of Lucky Charms. I just wish its 2 major elements hung together better, even if it does feel somewhat slapdash by its patently silly climax. I have to admit, I was a little amused by the sheer crudeness and craziness of it. It's in theaters this weekend and available for streaming next week. Quickly, we want to talk about 2 other films, Marlowe. And Marlowe, I have to say, is a noirish crime drama set in L.A. during the late 30s and featuring author Raymond Chandler's classic private detective, Philip Marlowe, although that movie is not based on any of Chandler's novels or short stories. And it does happen to star Liam Neeson, the latest actor to play Marlowe. A list that includes Bogart, Robert Mitchum, and even Elliot Gould as a more modern version of the character in a terrific 70s update of Chandler's The Long Goodbye. Neeson would seem to be a natural to play this grizzled, down-on-his-luck, durable guy. But this Enterprise seems like a knockoff, perhaps due to the non-Chandler source material. A novel entitled The Black-Eyed Blonde. I'm a big Chandler fan, read all his books, loved them unreservedly, and I can say this thing comes off as if it was written by a chat GPT AI after inputting a request for a script about Marlowe, corrupt rich people, dysfunctional families, murder, drugs, prostitution, and Hollywood's golden age. Yeah, anyway, one of the weirdest things about the movie is that it stars an Irish leading man, Neeson, has Ireland's Colm Meaney back here in a supporting role, was directed by Ireland's Neil Jordan, whose stellar filmography includes The Crying Game and Mona Lisa, and it was shot in Dublin and Barcelona rather than L.A., which is pretty much CGI rendered here. So it's actually an Irish movie rather than the expected sun-bleached SoCal thriller. High-profile actors, Jessica Lange and Diane Kruger as a femme fatale mother and daughter, Alan Cumming as a perverse mobster, and Danny Houston as a sinister club owner. I expected more than the flat, even perfunctory narrative that resulted. Lacking oomph, snap, or a new slant on the classic gumshoe, Marlowe was a disappointment despite the upscale cast and the period detail. I was hoping that at very least Neeson would say, "Give me back my fedora, you mugs," or "I have a certain set of suspenders," but no dice. Anyway, in theaters and available to rent or buy for home viewing through Prime Video, Apple TV, and Vudu. We've sort of run out of time, but I do want to just say there is a great movie I can recommend this week, and it's been out for a while. It's called The Quiet Girl, and it's an Irish film, and I believe it's nominated for Best Foreign Language Movie since it's primarily in the traditional Irish language Gaelic. Absolutely lovely, tender, and moving feature set in rural Ireland, 1981, about a repressed 9-year-old girl named Kate who's having trouble and goes away for the summer to spend a little time with cousins, and in that situation begins to find herself. It's just a lovely, lovely film. We can talk about it at greater length at some other point, but it's
that's great though, and I'm glad that and that's in theaters only, or is it streamable?
No, it's in theaters and available video on demand at iTunes, Vudu, and Apple TV. The actresses and actors involved, particularly the young actress playing Kate, Catherine Clinch, absolutely wonderful. By the end credits, it had scored 2 tiers on the Snyder cryometer. It's a truly powerful emotional journey, even though it's small scale. The Quiet Girl.
The Quiet Girl. We just heard about it. Marlowe. The Philip Marlowe reboot done with Liam Neeson, filled with all these great actors, but Michael says, wish it had been better. The script just ain't there. Unwelcome. That's with the characters Maya and Jamie living in a rough area of London. They move away to this rural community, and in this small town, they learn of the mythology. He thought it was okay. Champions is the half-ass sports comedy starring Woody Harrelson. Predictable and full of that predictability and poor script that he felt made it a missable offering. Although he did give a special shout-out to some of the kids they used, I guess, who were real kids in that program. And Scream. He feels the 6th iteration of Scream doesn't quite stand up to 1 and 5. That remain his favorite Scream films. Michael Snyder, you can read Michael Snyder in the Marina Times. You can find Michael Snyder oftentimes knocking around San Francisco in various haunts. And you can always hear Michael Snyder here on Fridays. Grateful for you, my friend. Sorry we started late. Thank you for squeezing it all in. He comes and goes on a rainbow.
So long, everybody. Have a happy Oscars weekend. Stay dry.
Happy Oscars, and send Brock Purdy a get well card. He just finished his surgery. Niners fan.